Si here! I've been wanting to make a sign using vinyl as a stencil. I've always used the vinyl lettering, but this time I'm going to remove the lettering and paint those spaces. I watched a few videos and I thought I would try it. So I got some boards ready by sanding them down. These are cedar boards. And then I put some ebony stain on them. When they were dry, I cut them to size, and then I glued some smaller boards to each side on the back. And I put some heavy weights on them until they were set. Okay, so I've never done this before, and kind of don't know, well, I know what I expect, but I don't know how it's gonna go. So I printed this off with my silhouette, and I have a piece of transfer paper over the top of the vinyl. The best way to do this is to have a 24-inch mat, which will hold your vinyl for your bigger signs, so that you can print off your design how you want it. And since I don't have that, I have to cut apart the words and arrange them how I want them to be. It's not ideal, but it works. When I had them where I wanted them, then I removed the paper backing from the vinyl and removed the vinyl from the letter spaces and stuck them on the board. I had to trim around the H in a few places so I could stick the next part on, and this wouldn't happen if I had a larger mat. But once I got those out of the way, I was able to put the rest on there. I used my frosting spreader to make sure it was firmly attached to the wood. Then I took the transfer paper off of the vinyl. Oh, you do? The videos said to use a sponge and to blot the paint on to avoid any seepage, and then to take the vinyl off right away before it dries. So I did that. I found it to be a chore to pull that vinyl off of the board, and some of the pieces stayed inside of the letters, and I just left those because the paint was wet and it was really easy to get it all over the place. And also right away I noticed how the paint had seeped beyond and underneath the lettering. And so that was a bummer. But I moved on and I continued to paint, hoping that maybe it wasn't as bad as I thought. When I finally got to the point where I was removing the vinyl off of the H, I figured things were dry enough to try to get the insides of those letters out. So I used a little tweezer and pulled those out. Well, the O should have been closer to the H. Or the H moved over. Yeah, that's what it should have been. The H should have been moved over a little bit. And you can see where it's coming out of the lines there. And so I gotta figure out how to fix that. But once it's dry, I'm hoping that I can sand off where it has come over the edges and add where I didn't get some paint. Right there and right there. But other than that, I think it's cool. The next morning I decided to sand off the H and make a new one, but I forgot to use transfer paper, so it was difficult to position it, but I finally got it. So don't forget transfer paper or contact paper. I also had to restain the area I sanded, and when I went over the remaining letters, it made them a tad darker, which I really liked. Then I painted again, blotting with the sponge, although I see that this technique does not keep the paint from seeping under the vinyl. Yikes! Yikes! Ooh. And when I pulled it off, I could see the H was totally in the wrong place again. And that was because I didn't have it on transfer paper, so I couldn't see where I was supposed to put it. Ah, the H is too close. Rats! Rats! Okay. Once that dries, I'm going to take it all off and do it over. Yep, that's what I'll do. So I sanded that off, re-stained, and started again. This time I made the H a little bit bigger, and I made sure to remember the transfer paper. I'm not sure what Wally was hearing, but he was making some little noises, and for some reason he wanted to sit on my lap. Then I painted everything again, and when I removed the vinyl this time, I was a little bit more careful, and I knew what to expect now, but it was still really messy. There were a few spots where I smudged it with my finger, and a whole lot of little seeps off of the letters. Oh, rats. After it dried, I removed the vinyl from inside of the letters and started sanding with a stick sander. I was afraid I may sand off the stain too much, but figured I could always restain it, and it would tint those letters a bit too, like I did last time. Turns out the paint sanded off really nicely, and I didn't have to re-stain the sign. For this big smudge spot, I used some 220 paper on it first, and then I went back with my little stick sander and smoothed around the corner, and that worked well. Then I went back and I added paint where the areas were thin after I had smudged them. Okay, I'm going to set it up and take a step back and take a look at it. Well, it doesn't look too shabby. Huh. Well, I like it. Yay. So thanks for hanging out with me while I tried to figure out how to do this. I had to do it a few times, but, and if you look real close at it, it's like, ooh, yeah, I need to practice a lot more, but it was fun, and it turned out better than I expected, so yay! So thanks again, and we'll see you next time. Bye!